This video is brought to you by Miniature Market. Thousands of board games, miniatures, and paints, discount prices at miniaturemarket.com.
Hey everybody, today we are going to be talking about the greatest expansions of all time. Now, it's a funny thing because expansions are almost expected nowadays if you have a Kickstarter. It's a way to, I hate to say this word, money grab, because why not just include it into the game? But it becomes something to get a higher tier by more expansions instead of including everything into a game. So when you go for a Kickstarter, you have, of course, the base set and then all the expansions and extra Kickstarter extras, basically. So it's become the norm for expansions in a way. But what inspired this video was a comment by our very own Kabuki Kid, who mentioned something when I had done my hidden gem games, and I'll get to that in a little bit. I had talked about a game, and she said it was probably one of the greatest expansions of all time, and I have to agree with her, and we'll talk about that. But some of the greatest expansions that I feel that are out there that have made a difference in the game really go back to some of the older games that I've played. And I hope in the comments, and you would send me at novaprime860@hotmail.com, but more in the comments, you'll tell me some of the expansions that you think really changed the game and made a difference, because I can't remember them all. I can't think of everything. And while I've got over 2,000 games, I can't remember them all. That's for doggone sure. I'm going to go with a couple, and we're going to talk a little bit about them. Dungeon Quest was a phenomenal game. It was brutally hard, and it was just as hard as a game would come when the original came out. But then when they added Catacombs, it made it even harder. And again, Catacombs added going actually underneath and trying to find a way out somewhere on the board, and it just made things and more time crunch. And it was one of the first expansions I picked up, and I was completely blown away by it. Talisman was a game that we would play forever, as you know. It is a family favorite, but it wasn't until they added every expansion where they added more corners and more places to go on each corner of the board that it made it even a bigger game. In a way, a longer game. But my children love it. So for us, all those expansions are just fantastic, and we love playing with everything. Arkham Horror, adding the extra boards and all the expansions that it had. Arkham Horror was a great game. It still is a great game. A phenomenal game by Richard Launius, and all the expansions that come with it, which I happen to have found and are very expensive. I got them all at a very cheap price, believe it or not. But Arkham Horror with all the expansions is another one of those, let's just take a day and play a game and have this wonderful experience and just have fun and sit back. And I love everything that it does and everything it brings, and all the different creatures and threats and equipment to help you through a very difficult game. Defender of the Realm, the Dragon expansion. One of the first games which were tower defense board games. Just phenomenal. It started kind of that pandemic-like thing, and was difficult enough. But when you added the Dragons expansion, having dragons come from every single angle was just glorious. And it just added another dimension to what was already a phenomenal game. Space Hulk. The original Space Hulk, and this is something I always hoped that they would do, was bring back Gene Stealer and Deathwing, which were great. And some of the, Space Hulk is such a phenomenal game. And the latest edition is just wonderful. But you add that Gene Stealer where you can have Gene Stealer cults, the Deathwings, the Psychers, and all the other things. It really just spices up and just breathes life into what is already a phenomenal experience. Warhammer Quest, we played that till no end. And then Lair of the Orc Lord came out, and it excited us, and we wanted more and more. And then then you had Lich Lord and all the other little things they would throw in there and Death Blow and stuff like that. Just made this game phenomenal. But in all honesty, the two greatest expansions of all time, I have to say, is Blood Bowl, Death Zone. Blood Bowl was great, and you had different teams and you would play and so forth and so on, but they were all one-off matches, or you could have a league but you couldn't improve your players. Death Zone came out and changed the entire game. Leagues were formed, your players could get better, new races, cards, star players, all these things that you can hire, and made this phenomenal league. And that was the start of the living rulebook, where it was just absolutely phenomenal. Death Zone, I consider one of the greatest expansions of all time. It did so much for the game. It changed the way a lot of people looked at Blood Bowl, and we've never looked back. All the coaches out there, really, each game, it's who can I get enough star player points so I can improve and maybe have a better team next week that I could put on the field. You're never out of it because of Death Zone, and I think that is just one of the most phenomenal experiences and expansions of all time. But the greatest, without a doubt, is the Xayah expansion. Forsaken is by far the greatest expansion because it allows solo play, and it changes it enough that makes this game that was 3 to 5 players, which you couldn't find a lot of times, and yet you had this beautiful, gorgeous 4X sandbox experience, and it turned it into a game that you could play by yourself and not skip a beat. There was just this phenomenal dynamic that was introduced, and being able to have the merchants, the police, the pirates, and they all can have different types of abilities. No game was the same. You would turn over one of their cards, and that was the ability that they had. It either hurt you or helped you. You may have somebody chasing after you the whole way while you're trying to get to these points, and meanwhile, it really just upped things up, where it became a race against time because the AI was always moving and always becoming more popular in the universe. It is a game I discovered and now has made its way into the top 10 because of the expansion. And that's what makes this game so outstanding, so wonderful. Not only was it a hidden gem for me, but it's got to be considered one of the greatest expansions of all time. Now, I pose to you, our fantastic community, what is the greatest expansion of all time? Did I miss something? I just can't count all these things that came out for all these Kickstarters because it just became the norm. I'm talking about a game, and then after a year or so, all of a sudden an expansion comes out, and just changes, it breathes new life into that game for you. A game that you may have played about maybe 20, 30 times, 40 times, and then all of a sudden now you're back playing it, and you never stop playing it because the expansion just improved on the designer's original idea, getting feedback maybe from the fans and stuff like that. So I'm really anxious to see what you think. Here are my thoughts, of course, as you've heard. So as always, leave a comment below, like and subscribe, and until next time, it's your old pal Rob.
The end of the game, and you could get this from Miniature Market, right, Grandpa?
You can get this from Miniature Market. That's right.
Yeah, everything you need. Bye.